Taiwan, I'm Liao with news from here in Taiwan and around the world. Typhoon Podul made landfall in Taiwan on Wednesday afternoon, bringing gusts of over 200 kilometers per hour in some parts of the country. Thousands of homes have lost power as a result. Parts of southern Taiwan are expected to see heavy rain into Wednesday night. President Chengdu says he wants the National Communications Commission to set up protocols to help preserve Taiwan's telecoms infrastructure during typhoons.
我也希望通传会能够特别留意因为如果电线杆倒塌，或者是说基地台损坏，那除了电跟水是民众重要的需求以外，通讯也是所以我希望我们通常会应该要有积极的应变措施。
Podul's eye left Taiwan a few hours after making landfall. While it was here, Podul brought severe weather throughout eastern Taiwan. Hundreds of local residents in a remote part of Hualien County had to evacuate. The intense weather has left them worried about their homes. Irene Lin reports.
Heavy rain and winds have pummeled this rural town in the eastern county of Hualien. It's just one of 14 cities and counties in Taiwan to be hit by moderate typhoon Podul. Inside this temporary shelter, hundreds of local residents from 3 riverside towns have been waiting here since Tuesday due to the imminent threat of a dam that is close to breaching. Residents have lived near the dam for decades, and there have been a few evacuation warnings in the past. But after a major 7.2 magnitude earthquake last April and 2 back-to-back storms this July altered the landscape around the dam, people are more anxious than ever.
怕那个洋流台风如果豪雨量超过400、600，可能就满了，满了之后可能会溃堤，所以大家才紧张当然很希望说中央把那个溃堤部分或溃堤的余力赶快消除掉不要每次台风来我们就很紧张到底会溃堤这些基本因为下来不是水而已里面可能夹杂一些土石流、一些树枝这种东西，危害很大了。
Many of the residents who still live in these towns are elderly people who need substantial care, as the younger generation has moved out to seek work elsewhere. The military has helped to move them to this shelter. None had the time to pack their valuables before being evacuated. Only some basic essentials to get them through the waiting period.
我都吓到了，大家都紧张死了。我们长久以来到现在就第一次了，没有，我们就只有拿自己身上贵重的东西了。当然，贵重的东西就金钱而已其他没有啦。
It wasn't easy to leave their homes of the past 3 to 4 decades. Some say they were reluctant to evacuate. Still, they try to stay positive.
朋友说你不撤离的话要罚款的，如果你发生事情的话，乡公所是政府没有补助，好了下来，留着青山在，不怕没柴烧，是不是这样子呢？
The shelter used to be a student dorm of a vocational high school. The principal worked with the township office to provide not only food and water, but also a space as comfortable as possible for the town locals.
现在3个楼层加起来，总共大概有140位民众。那学校提供学生宿舍的主要考量还是以民众的生活便利性为主，因为这边有比较足够的淋浴空间跟如厕的空间。那民众在这边这几天的生活，应该也会比较接近日常的生活方式。
The Central Weather Administration has predicted that the storm will leave the Hualien region on Wednesday evening. With more heavy rainfalls coming, authorities are still deciding whether it's safe enough for the locals to return home.
It's the first and hopefully the only night that these people have had to seek shelter here. They're all waiting for the government to announce that they're safe to return home and hoping that when they do, the typhoon will have left their town unscathed. Justin Wu, Scott Huang, and Irene Lin in Hualien for TaiwanPlus.
The White House says companies beyond NVIDIA and AMD may have to pay a 15% fee on their China chip sales if they want to do business there. That's as China grills its tech companies on why they want U.S. chips in the first place. Chris Gorin reports on what's at stake for both sides.
More U.S. chip makers might have to pay up if they want to sell in China, according to the White House, which reached a deal with NVIDIA and AMD to hand over 15% of profits from their China sales in exchange for export licenses.
Look, right now it stands with these two companies. Perhaps it could expand in the future to other companies. I think it's a creative idea and solution. The legality of it, the mechanics of it is still being ironed out by the Department of Commerce, and I would defer you to them for any further details on how it will actually be implemented.
At stake are AI chips like NVIDIA's H20, built specifically for China to meet U.S. export restrictions. But it's unclear if Beijing wants to let them in. Chinese officials have reportedly questioned tech giants like Tencent and ByteDance over why they're buying H20s instead of domestic chips, according to Reuters. And for NVIDIA, the China market is too big to ignore.
We already saw NVIDIA, for example, pull back by, I think it was $50 billion pullback on a 10-year forecast because of its loss of China. So I think we can be, looking at similar.
The H20 is faster than chips made in China, but still slower than NVIDIA's top of the line. And China is trying to change that, part of its long-term strategy to bolster its own chip industry, regardless of U.S. restrictions.
无论是航天科技还是芯片制造，外部施加的无理打压从未停歇过。但哪里有封锁，哪里就有突围；哪里有打压，哪里就有创新。
The fate of the H20 may hinge on a future trade deal between Washington and Beijing, whose officials are due to meet in the coming months following a 90-day tariff truce. And that outcome could set the stage for the next AI race. John Su and Chris Gorin for TaiwanPlus.
For more on China's domestic chip push and the needs of its AI companies, Chris Gorin spoke with Chim Lee, senior analyst at the Economist Intelligence Unit.
Reuters reports that Chinese officials have grilled tech companies like Tencent and ByteDance on why they're buying American chips like NVIDIA's H20 rather than domestically made but slower Chinese chips. But China also wants to become an AI leader, so do you see this as a change?
We actually think that is a continuation of the policy trends we've been seeing. So China has been very much emphasizing the security aspects of its technology. We have seen quite a lot of narratives around self-sufficiency and indigenous innovation over the last decade or two at this point. So in this context, we have seen, in fact, the Chinese government has been encouraging the state-owned enterprises in the public sector to use domestic alternatives already. So now it is really sort of expanding it to also the non-state sector as well. So the largest tech companies in China, essentially like sort of encouraging them, incentivizing them to use domestic alternatives rather than the imported chips.
What do American chips like the H20 have over their Chinese competition?
Yeah, so if we look at the hardware aspect, there are still Chinese options are still a little bit lagging behind, although they've been catching up. So over the last few years, we have seen the domestic alternatives gaining foothold gradually, and in fact, they've been eating into NVIDIA's market share over time already. Now, the main problem is not just about the hardware, but also about the software aspect as well. So NVIDIA has a very mature software ecosystem. So in this context, we think the domestic alternatives, they are, as described by many of those in the industry, they're like the domestic options are usable, but they're not necessarily the best they can use at the moment.
You know, if I'm a Chinese AI company, I probably want the best, right? I don't want to compromise. If the Trump administration is willing to sell us the H20 or even the next generation Blackwell chips, I want it, right? So are the goals of Chinese AI companies in tension with the goals of the Chinese government here?
Yeah, there are a little bit of tensions there we can see. So I think this is particularly in the context of the Trump administration signaling that they may be interested in approving even more advanced chips to be exported to China. So for tech companies in China, and when they're thinking about R&D, when they're thinking of developing new models or even new applications, having the best chips in the market tend to be doing better. So in this context, there will always be a little bit of tensions between the tech companies and the Chinese government's goals in terms of developing domestic alternatives, particularly by expanding the market for the domestic chips.
The chips in question are US designed, but are made by Taiwan's TSMC. So if they're prevented from being sold in China, will that impact the chip industry here in Taiwan?
Yeah, so there will be some hit to chip sales, right? So assuming that if the Chinese companies are actually not able to use the NVIDIA chips because of either US export controls or because of Chinese policy measures, then that means that Taiwanese manufacturers, they are not necessarily able to manufacture the chips and sell and in turn. But on the other hand, we have seen very, very strong AI chip demand, particularly in the US and to a less extent in other markets as well. So the hit will be there, but it's not necessarily as big as one would assume.
That was Chim Lee from the Economist Intelligence Unit. Shares of Taiwan chip giant TSMC reached their highest ever price today at about $40. That follows decisions to increase investments in advanced processes and overseas facilities. TSMC's board authorized more than $20 billion for building more advanced tech and packaging capacity. It said it will phase out its 6-inch wafer production as it focuses on more advanced technologies. It also said it would inject up to $10 billion in its foreign subsidiaries to avoid foreign exchange risk. Taiwan's economy minister says the country may need to continue its investments in the U.S. to secure a lower tariff rate from Washington.
我们台湾去谈，我在想跟大家互动，我说我要现在无事情哦，不能做歹讲。
Guo made the comments at an energy forum on Wednesday. It comes as Taiwan's government works to lower a 20% tariff on most of its goods to the U.S. The economy minister also said a new Taiwan trade office due to open in Texas this month would help support Taiwanese businesses in the U.S.
我们在这个月可能会把这个德州的贸易服务中心建立起来，然后接着可能会建立在这个其他的州。 主要的目的还是帮助我们中小企业、中小微型企业在做出口的时候具有更大的这个竞争力。
Taiwan already has trade centers in the Czech Republic and Japan that support businesses with investment issues overseas. Taiwan People's Party Chair Huang Guocang says nuclear power has majority support in Taiwan. He cited polls showing that 2/3 of Taiwanese people back restarting one of the country's nuclear plants.
非常多不同的机构，包括台湾民众党在内，我们针对国人、针对核三研议的态度做了全国性的民调。多数的民众都支持立法院修法延长核电厂的使用年限，高达70%的民意支持核三厂在通过整体安全评估后继续运转。
Huang was speaking at a debate over nuclear power use in Taiwan. The country will hold a referendum on August 23rd, asking voters if they support restarting the Ma'anshan nuclear power plant in southern Taiwan. Huang's remarks come after a poll from the Taiwanese Public Opinion Foundation found that 66% of respondents are in favor of restarting the plant. During the debate, Huang's opponent argued that doing so would come with huge safety risks as the surrounding area is seismically active.
台电也对核三重新进行地质调查，并在最新的报告中指出，被归类为活动断层的恒春断层直接穿越了核三厂的厂址，并且距离反应炉不到900公尺。
The referendum will be held alongside recall votes for 7 KMT lawmakers. Taiwan has won 2 more medals at the 2025 World Games in Chengdu, China. Zhang Huanyi took bronze in men's wushu sanda after claiming victory over Ruslan Pirliev of Azerbaijan 2-0 in the 70-kilogram weight class. Taiwan also defeated the Czech Republic 19-15 in the indoor korfball competition, earning another bronze medal. It was the 5th consecutive World Games the team has medaled at. So far this year, Taiwan has bagged 1 gold, 1 silver, and 3 bronze in Chengdu. And thank you for watching What's Up Taiwan. Finally, we leave you with images of elephants in South Africa enjoying cool moments with visitors on World Elephant Day. I'm Liao. Take care and see you next time.